eating, drinking, enjoying the life in the land and the herbs and the vegetables and the animals in a way that creates a different relationship between human beings and nature. And and why I say that that is highly political, because I've noticed that the young people, they, even those that are from peasant origins and indigenous peoples with whom I work so often, sometimes they are not so sensitive to the idea of the spirituality of land, the need to protect your land, your ancestral land, and so on. But they are very sensitive to the ecological issues. And we have found students, peasants, youth people, young people, that even though they don't know much about agriculture, in fact, they are urban kids, they know nothing, but they are very concerned about ecological things. How are we destroying the climate? We are polluting the atmosphere. And as you see, you have here almost on one side the peasants' movements in which usually people are of an older age, and you take the ecological movement in which younger people are always in the forefront, women and men and young women. So I think that to answer your question, Elizabeth, and I'm very glad that you raised it, I'm not sure that we are doing different. I'm not, dare to think that it's very special, but it's different from just trying to have a conversation to know what you think. I think we are sharing anxieties, and since both of us at different levels are involved with social movements, we want this to go down. I mean, this is not a conversation that we are doing here for militant reasons. We know that our people, my students, the people with whom I work in Latin America, know more about Africa. Because, and you probably, it's very important for Africa to know more about Latin America. Because after all, the World Social Forum didn't manage to bring more because of the obstacles in transportation and so on, so that the realities of Latin America peasants and African peasants become more and more evident. Of course, the MST has done a wonderful work in trying to bring it together, but there are many other organizations you need to do more. So I think that in terms of the UPMS, I'd like also to tell you that I was very, very pleased with the way you conduct, and all our friends that were there, from your team, from my team, from Via Campesina, how they conducted, and people are very happy at the end with the results. And I think they are energized.
Yeah, just to come into your question about the issues of land, the stories which are really being spread outside there. I think you are very much aware of how the Zimbabwean land was fought for. And the reason we went to fight for the land is because we really knew how our ancestors were the owners of the land and how it was taken from them. Some of them, like Mbianyanda, Sekulukagovi, Sekuluchakaminuka, who were killed because of the land, and how the colonialists came to bribe with bribes to our traditional leaders, to our chiefs. So those issues. Now, the most important thing maybe to know is that, let me give you an example, because if I borrow your shirt, I use it for ages and ages. And now when you claim back your shirt, then I say I resist with the shirt. And this is the situation which happened. And to make things worse, the Zimbabweans had said, okay, you have the land, you have 6 farms, each person, or 7 farms. Why can't we share so that the Zimbabweans also get some pieces of land? And now you find out most of the white farmers, they did not want to share the land. That is now how the Zimbabweans thought, okay, enough is enough. We went to fight. Our comrades, our children, our brothers, sisters died, were killed because they were fighting for the land. So there's nothing we should wait for. Let's go ahead, let's occupy the land. Then the government was left with no option after the war veterans and the communities themselves just radically occupied the land. So the government had to come up with now strategies on how to distribute land so that many Zimbabweans could get the piece of land. I think from the stories, from the presentations which we had, you have quite a lot of information on how the land reform program took place. Of course, the medias can say whatever they want, but land is for Zimbabwe. It was never land for the Western, for these colonialists who came to our country. We didn't say we don't want them, but we really wanted to be with them, to do farming together, but it was their decision to leave the country because they did not want the right to share, which was a good idea because we also needed the advice on how to utilize the land. Because if you can see who was working on their farms, it is us. And we're getting very little. You find that most of the people who were working on these farms were being paid nothing. Maybe they were paid by being given food like 5 kgs of mealie meal, some matembas, this small fish which you were enjoying, and maybe a kg of salt or 50 grams of salt, 1 kg of sugar, 1 bar of soap. That was the payment after all doing the lot of work on the farm. So I think it was very necessary for us to make sure the Zimbabweans take back what belonged to them. You may hear that, of course, we are going hungry because we cannot produce. The commercial for the white farmers were the ones who were producing. That is not the truth. Let's see the reality which is happening. I think we can really witness the climate crisis which is hitting almost every region, every continent, every country. I was in Germany. They were saying this is summer, but we're experiencing a lot of rain every day and the crops are not doing well. So all those issues, this is really some stories which you get from the media about the land issue in Zimbabwe. And I don't have to say much about it, but otherwise, what we really need to do as Zimbabweans or as social movements together, let's try to unite and define this process which the Zimbabweans has gone through so that the other regions also can learn, the other countries from the SADC can also learn, because you go to Zimbabwe, to Mozambique, people are so much distressed. They are being removed away from their land, from their origins, in the name of projects. Which projects? Who is going to benefit from these projects like the Pro Savannah? What do you tell a farmer who is on the ground about that project? Do I care of that project? What I want is to be on my land and produce food to feed my family and also the nation. You see, all those issues. I think with the issues which you raised, why this is important, I also agree. I also totally agree with you, because sometimes people just take what has been written, but not necessarily coming out from the real people who are practicing, who are facing these challenges. So I really want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you to discuss most of these issues from my little knowledge as a practical farmer, a woman farmer who is really on the ground and also leading all these farmer organizations, which I am truly speaking that I am also one of the founder members of these small-scale farmer organizations, who especially ZIMSOF, Zimbabwe Smallholder Organic Farmers Forum, the Eastern and Southern Africa Smallholder Farmers Forum, through working with non-governmental organizations like Fambiza Permaculture Center here, which is also a member to Pelham Zimbabwe. We also had some trainings through these NGOs, and also to understand more of the situation which is happening in Africa, or especially in SADC region, and also especially here in Zimbabwe.
Well, Elizabeth, in fact, one of the most striking things that I experienced in our workshop was how the Mozambicans, the women, because they were all women except for Boa Monjan, how energized they became for being here, because they saw the danger now more clearly, that their land that they used to have, because you didn't have it here, and that to struggle for it, and they are losing the land, and so they have to energize themselves to fight against that loss, because they can still stop. Probably already there is some damage, and there is already some expulsions and so on. But I think that particularly UNAC is an organization with which we have been working. They are becoming more and more concerned and also energized to fight against this pro-savannah and other agribusiness, this agrofuel. That's what they are trying to invest. So that I was very struck by that. And the other was the passionate affirmations from and statements, interventions by our comrades from South Africa, because landless peasants, and I have seen them in Brazil, and I've seen really how distressful a peasant without a land is almost a contradiction. I mean, it's impossible. And we could see in that our colleague from South Africa, the contradiction in his own body, in his own personality, in the way he's expressed himself. So you have land, we don't have land. So dramatic. So I think that we got here very good energies for for the struggle for land reform. So really, Zimbabwe, I get out of here from Zimbabwe, Elizabeth, quite frank, absolutely convinced Zimbabwe is in the forefront of a struggle for land in favor of peasants. There are, of course, problems, and we may discuss them, and we were discussing them. We have to correct some issues, we have to deepen, we have to democratize, but the main idea, the main thrust of this land reform is really an anti-colonial redress. Is finally land to the original owners. Something that, in fact, never happened in Latin America. That's the problem now. I think they have to learn in Latin America from the Zimbabwean experience, because in Brazil we have all these latifundios, all these huge land holdings. Where do they come from? From Portuguese colonialism. The king would give parts of the land to this and that, and now they claim they were taken away from the indigenous people. They used to say the land is free, vacant. There's nobody there. Of course, there were people living there, but these people didn't matter. So I think that Zimbabwean experience is relevant for Africa, but is relevant for other continents as well. And I think that whatever you do that, and for me and for many of us, everything that is going to be done in Zimbabwe, the world is going to pay attention to. And one of the things for me is very clear. Please, this has to be irreversible. So never come back or never go back by whatever means. And we know that capitalism is very smart. They have all kinds of ways of bribing people, of trying to... Do you see these dangers? Do you think that you have to be vigilant so that this land reform is not derailed? How do you see it?
Yeah, Bo, I think that is a very relevant question, and we are foreseeing a danger where, if we are not really strong enough to be proactive, especially looking at our future generations, we have to be proactive, also to inform our youth, to get them on board so that they can also own even some pieces of land and also be practical on the ground to feel that this is the land which they should also inherit. But now, the danger which is there right now, we never know of the challenges which the country is facing. We might have some new leaders who might come, who might also think to sell back the land. But so the citizens of Zimbabweans, with the support of other movements like people like you and other members of our La Via Campesina, who are really much happy with this land reform program which took place in Zimbabwe, I think we can be united and also try to protect, to defend this land issue in Zimbabwe. And the dangers, you have these transnational corporations who are trying by their level means just to penetrate with the ideas, of course, we want to come to invest with these contract farming systems,